Hey everybody, my name is Rob Harris. Welcome to Off the Map Live. All right, we got a good crowd here. I hope we have a good crowd online. Today we are going to be talking about Tattoo Removal 101, what you need to know. We're going to be talking about the process of tattoo removal, the history of tattoo removal, what to look for in tattoo removal, how it works, pretty much anything you want to know about tattoo removal. And at the end, we're going to have a question and answer. We're also going to have a bad tattoo contest. So if you got questions, write them down and we will get to them at the end. So just to give you a little background, who we are. I am the owner of Disappearing Ink. We were founded 3 years ago in March 1st, so we will have been in business 3 years. We have 3 offices here in Massachusetts, Boston, Braintree, and Framingham, all right around the Boston area. Myself, I am a certified laser technician and laser safety officer, former EMT, and got into tattoo removal a little over 3 years ago. And then my wife, whose title is officially Queen Bee, she also is a laser safety officer and certified laser technician, and she works in our Braintree and Framingham offices. I work in the Boston office, though we do switch around every once in a while because it gets boring being in the same office every day. So we try to switch it up every once in a while. This is a quote that was an article that Boston Globe was kind enough to write about us. It kind of talks about what tattoo removal is all about, and I think that's kind of what makes us different at Disappearing Ink, is that we don't just look at people and say, oh, we need to get their tattoos off. Everybody's got their story, and every story is really important to us, and the people are what this business is all about, not just about the ink. So the only thing I would say about that quote that I don't love is that word regret, because you hear that all the time when you're talking about tattoo removal. I regret getting this, I regret getting that. But it's not about regret, because really you can't go back and change the clock. You can't say, well, I shouldn't have, I could have, I would have. Instead, what we try to do is we try to turn the page, and that's what we mean by we believe the reason you want to get your tattoo off is as unique as the reason you got it in the first place. It's your tattoo, it's your body, it's your story. And what we're helping people do is to turn the page and make something that maybe they don't like as much. We're going to try to make it new again. Importantly, we love tattoos, and these are all my tattoos. So I figured it out the other day. I've spent about 35 hours being tattooed. The reason that one with a 42 is in the center there is because that was my first tattoo, and I got that when I was 42 years old. Although people who watch or have read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy will understand actually what the 42 means. And so basically what happened was I got into this business and I thought, I don't have any tattoos. And how disingenuous it is to do tattoo removal when all my clients have one thing in common, and that's they all have a tattoo. I thought I need to get a tattoo. So I got one tattoo, and the funny story about this tattoo is my wife was not there when I got the tattoo, and I said to her, look, the one thing you got to tell me when you see that tattoo is, oh my God, I love it, it's the best thing ever. And when I showed her the picture, I texted her the picture right after I got it, that picture right there, and she said, why does it look like a bullseye? So she didn't do what I wanted her to do. I still love the tattoo, regardless of what she thinks of it. She likes it now. But I got very into tattooing. I became friends with a tattoo artist that specializes in Japanese traditional, and that's how I got the one on the left and the one on the right there. So my arms are done. It goes down on my chest. I have a koi fish. The rest of them were done on my thighs. Back of thigh, tough place for a tattoo, but that's my latest tattoo, the balloon in the corner there. But we love tattoos, and that's what makes us a little bit different than most of the people doing tattoo removal. If you go to a med spa or a dermatologist's office, they don't like tattoos. They don't understand tattoos. They just want to get them off. They see them as something bad. And we are the exact opposite. Whether you've got one tattoo or you've got 50 tattoos, we love it. I am also a client. So this is my thigh right here, my right thigh. I put that on not too long after we started the business, and we've been doing lots of experimenting on it. So I've tried all different techniques, because if we're going to try something new, I'm the test dummy. So we do it on me first, and then to see if it works. And so this is my tattoo. This is about after 8 or 9 sessions. You can see it's basically gone now. So I know what it feels like. So when people are saying, you know, what's up with tattoo removal, I not only can I just tell them, but I can tell them this is what it feels like, this is what it does, this is what works, because I've done it on myself. And some people think I'm absolutely crazy for that, but you got to know what it's all about. So let's talk a little bit about the history of tattoo removal. removal. So how did tattoo removal get started? What did they used to do before they had lasers? This was a big one. Excision. So this is people go and get surgery to get their tattoos removed. So basically the dermatologist or surgeon will cut out a piece of your skin and sew it back together. That's the result of that. So she had some sort of tattoo on her side. It's no longer there. That was a fairly large tattoo. And you can see she doesn't have a tattoo anymore, so yay. But that big giant scar going down her side, not so good. And that was the problem with excision. In fact, we have a client recently who came in. He had a tattoo on his finger. We did one treatment. He wanted to get into the military. He had a rush, so he just went in and he just had it cut out. So he's going to have a big scar down the side of his finger. Tattoo's not there. Not the best option in general to leave a big scar where the tattoo used to be. So this is another one that people have done in the past. This is called dermabrasion or salibrasion. Think about belt sander and skin, right? So that's basically the concept between dermabrasion or salibrasion. Dermabrasion, they use a small spinning, almost like a sandpaper kind of thing. Salibrasion, they'll use salt and they'll rub, 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 rub. Same deal with this and excision. You know, what's the problem with it? You get your tattoo off eventually, but it doesn't look so good afterwards. You end up with a big scar, so instead of having a tattoo, you have a big scar. That is not the optimal situation. There's some new techniques that are non-laser techniques. They call them injectables. It's kind of a wide variety of stuff, but basically the idea here is that you take a tattoo machine or you take some sort of device to inject an acid-based solution under the skin. Can it work? Yes. Does it work most of the time? Not that we've seen. These are some of the more gory examples. These will be the only sort of gory slides that I'll show you. What are injectables? Some of the names: tattoo vanish, vanishing, tattoo away, eliminating. These are all people, they make these big claims. We can get your tattoo off. It's non-laser. It takes less sessions. Basically, once this acid-based solution goes in your skin, takes the ink, it comes up through your skin into a giant, if you have a multicolored tattoo, into a giant multicolor scab. You can't get it wet for a long time. It can't fall off. If it falls off, it tends to cause scarring like this. The other piece of this is that the FDA has never really approved any of this stuff. So all this acid being injected into people's skin is not particularly safe as far as we can go with it. So there's also tattoo creams, Wrecking Balm being the biggest one of the tattoo creams. I just put this up. This is just a clear example. There's a guy online, a tattoo artist, who did it for 78 days straight to see if it worked, and you know what? They don't work. Just biologically, there is no way to get a chemical strong enough to take your tattoo out, to get it through that outer layer of skin. It just does not happen. If you look online, most people will say it doesn't work. It can lighten your skin, though, to make it look as if your tattoo is coming off, but it's really not. So Wrecking Balm, not really a good option. Just to talk about lasers for a second, what is a laser? Laser is actually an acronym. Most people don't know that. Light amplification of stimulated emissions of radiation. Basically, it works that the laser goes in through your skin and it does a certain thing. And the reason I kept it vague like that is because there's lots of different things you can do with lasers. You can do laser hair removal. You can do laser tattoo removal. You can get rid of veins. You can get rid of arteries. You can, that are showing. You can get rid of dark spots. You can get rid of red spots. So lasers can do a lot of different things. What tattoo removal technically falls under is this big word, selective photothermolysis. And frankly, I like telling people this because it's just a cool word. Selective meaning you're targeting certain colors with certain lasers. Photo means light. Thermo means heat. Lysis means death. Now, don't get excited. We're not killing anybody when we do laser tattoo removal. That term actually comes from hair removal, where you're actually killing the hair follicle in order to make it work. So that's where that term comes from. They still use it for tattoo removal. It's sort of the same thing, but sort of not. So we're not killing anything. We're not killing anybody. But selective photothermolysis is just fun to say. So lots of different kinds of tattoo removal lasers. Back in the 1980s in Scotland, they actually were doing the initial surveys. They used a ruby laser, which we actually still use today. And a ruby, what they wanted to see is this dangerous for people? Does it cause cancer? Does it cause any other issues? And in Scotland, back in the 1980s, where they showed that these lasers are perfectly safe to use on human skin. In the mid-1990s, they actually did some research at MGH, at Mass General Hospital, that also brought the science forward, and it showed that it is actually really safe for people to use on their skin. We use a laser that's a Q-switch laser. That's what they were doing the research on. It means that it fires at 1 billionth of a second, and we'll talk a little more about that. The primary crystal, there's all different crystals. Remember we said it was selective photothermolysis, so selective meaning you're using different wavelengths of the laser in order to take out different colors. So our primary crystal, the one we use, the one that is the industry standard for getting out black, is this Nd:YAG crystal. Stands for neodymium doped yttrium aluminum and garnet. It is a mouthful. It is a man-made crystal. It is designed to have one particular wavelength. That wavelength that it likes to take out black. Same crystal that's used in hair removal. Different laser. Got to be really careful about that. But this is the industry standard for taking out blacks. There are other crystals, alexandrite, ruby. Those are really good at taking out blues and greens. They'll also take out black. They just don't do it as well as an Nd:YAG laser. So, does speed matter? Well, it's interesting because right now in the technology of lasers, we use a Q-switch laser 1/1000th of a second, or 1/10000000th of a second. Versus the newest lasers out there are called Pico lasers, and Pico lasers theoretically fire at 1/quadrillionth of a second, but really what they're firing at is about 500 to 800 picoseconds. A picosecond is a quadrillionth. Are they better? Because people are hearing, oh, do you have the new Pico laser? Now, we have 3 shops, and we've gotten all those shops in the last 3 years when the Pico lasers came out. For our shops, every single time we've had the option of buying a Pico laser, we have chosen not to do so. Why? Are they bad? No, they're not bad. It's just that they're not doing what they're meant to do. So they're meant, according to all the marketing from the companies, they're meant to take out tattoos twice as fast. That would be awesome if we had a device that took out tattoos twice as fast. But if you've ever bought the first version of a computer, or the first version of a car, or the first version of a phone, or any device, any electronic complex device, if you've ever bought the first version, that's where we are now. All these Pico devices, they are all the first version. Problem with the first version of a device, it doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. What we've been finding is, can Pico be faster? Yes. Is it? Not usually. And in fact, there's a lawsuit right now from the original Pico Sure laser. This was the first Pico laser that came out. There's a class action lawsuit of people who bought it saying to the company, you lied to us, it doesn't do what you told us it would do. It doesn't work twice as well as the Q-switch lasers. Again, Q-switch technology, tried and true, been around since really the 80s or 90s. This Pico, newfangled, it could be better someday. We're not seeing that right now. Skip ahead maybe 5 to 7 years from now, we'll have a femtosecond laser. Pico is trillionth, femto is quadrillionth. So femtosecond lasers would be 1/quadrillionth of a second. They use them in eye surgery, so they exist. Do they exist in tattoo removal? No. The beauty of what will happen theoretically when we get femtosecond lasers is they will be colorblind, meaning that they could take out any color of tattooing. Instead of using different wavelengths, which would be great. We could run one laser over the whole tattoo, it would take out every color. This has not even been close to tested on human skin yet. We are easily 5 to 7 years away from that. I have a feeling these are going to be what we get to. This is going to be what in the future will be the best thing for removing tattoos, and Pico is just kind of a step to that. We'll see, but right now Pico maybe not quite ready for prime time, although the companies will tell you it is. We're kind of waiting for something to be a little bit more stable. So, how does tattoo removal work? So, this is kind of the process, and we're not going to go into extreme detail, but basically the laser goes through your outer layer of skin, your epidermis, into your dermal layer. That is where your tattoo is. And what happens is the ink tries to absorb all that energy, but the energy is going too fast. It's going at 1/100000th of a second. It can't hold together, and it explodes or shatters inside your skin into tiny little pieces. You can see that in the third piece right there. And what happens then is that your body can now do something with those tiny little pieces. When the tattoo is in a big blob, those pieces are too big for your body to do anything with. When it's in little tiny pieces, now your immune system, it comes in, it brings it through your system, and out your body is waste. Ultimately, with tattoo removal, you end up pooping out your tattoo ink. That's the way it works. In fact, I had one client say to me, can I see it when I poop it out? I'm like, first of all, do you really want to look? Second of all, it happens over a long period of time, about 6 weeks, which we'll talk about. So no, you cannot see it if you poop, but that's the way it's getting out. So what are the factors that affect tattoo removal? I mean, is everybody a good candidate for tattoo removal? Kinda. But there are some factors that do affect it. So first and foremost is the density of the ink. So we're not talking about color. We'll talk a little bit about color later. This is how much ink is actually in your tattoo. So if it's shading, it's going to come out faster than lines. If it's light, it's going to come out faster than dark. So big, dark tribal tattoos, those take a little longer. Black and gray, very light, those will come out a little faster. Also, the type of ink matters as well, and this is a real challenging one for us. As it is for the studios and the artists, the type of ink makes a big difference to us. So is the ink regulated by the FDA? Kinda, sorta. So if you look at that, this is from the FDA website. If you look at that second sentence, because of other public health priorities and previous lack of evidence of safety concerns, FDA has not traditionally regulated tattoo inks or the pigments in them. A little scary, isn't it? Right? So, so there people are injecting this into our skin, and yet we don't really know what's in them. One of the hard parts about this is that as a cosmetic, which is basically the way the FDA regulates tattoo ink, so they rub it on the skin. If it doesn't cause a reaction, that's fine. Is that cosmetic manufacturers don't need to disclose what's in their inks, in their products. Therefore, ink manufacturers do not need to disclose all the ingredients in their products, which for us is really difficult, right? Because all these inks come out differently. Specifically, there are water or alcohol-based inks, and then there's glycerin-based inks. Glycerin is an oil. Glycerin will thicken up an ink. A lot of artists will use a thicker ink in something like a tribal, something where you want it to be heavy and black. These come out differently for us. What's the big challenge about that? We don't know what kind of ink was used on anybody. We don't know what's in that ink before we start. So some tattoos that we look at, we go, oh, it's going to be easy, and they end up being a little more challenging because maybe they have glycerin in them. Maybe the tattoo artist has used some glycerin-based inks. Whereas we'll look at some tattoo that's really dark, and maybe it was used with some kind of ink that's not so great, and it comes out beautifully. We just don't know. Just to talk a little bit about permanent cosmetics, it makes it even a little more complex. So for those of you with permanent cosmetics, you're thinking about possibly removing. Permanent cosmetics tend to have metals in them, so titanium oxides, iron oxides. And what happens sometimes when we laser these, they get darker sometimes, they change color sometimes. I had a client come in with very orangey eyebrow ink that used to be more of a bluish grayish color that went back to the bluish grayish color and is now coming out beautifully. But they can turn lots of different colors. So the type of ink and the density of ink are two factors, one of which we can kind of look at and say, okay, that's either a really dark tattoo or it's not. The other one which we really have no control over and we don't know until we start the process. Skin tone also plays, well, first of all, placement on the body plays a role in tattoo. What we say is, the closer to your heart, the faster the tattoo is going to come out. What does that mean? It just means the more blood flow you have to the area, the faster the tattoo comes out. So hands, feet, those tattoos take a little bit longer because you have less blood flow here. Therefore, your immune system is going to be a little bit slower. It takes a little bit longer to get those tattoos out. Interestingly enough, one of the tattoos that comes out the quickest, what they call buccal tattoos, inner lip tattoos, come out really, really fast. Why? Because there's so much blood flow there that they come out super easily. Not really pleasant, but they do come out super easily. In terms of skin tone, this chart that is showing up here is called the Fitzpatrick scale. It goes from 1 to 6. You can see it goes from somebody who is red-headed and light-skinned at 1 to someone who is dark-skinned, dark hair, dark eyes, and number 6. We can do tattoo removal on anybody on the chart. It just changes as the skin gets darker. Why? We'll talk a little bit later about some of the risks. One of those risks is hypopigmentation, which means a lightening of the skin. If I lighten the skin on number 1, and I have 2 redheads at home who are sort of translucent, if we were to lighten something on their skin and their skin turned a little white, you'd never notice. If we lighten something on somebody that has darker skin, you're obviously going to notice that a little bit more. So we do it a little bit differently. We'll take it a little bit easier on a 6 than we would on a 1. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things we found, although you can't really see any marks on a number 1, what happens if we don't get the tattoo off 100%, every little mark will show. So there's a pro and a con to having very fair skin. The pro is that in some ways the tattoo is easier to do. It's a little less challenging. A con is if it's coming off, it has to come all the way off, and you can't leave much there because it's going to show no matter what. Although freckly people are like the easiest, right? Because freckles will kind of cover things up and you have fair skin. So waiting time between sessions, can you come in and get a tattoo removed in one session? You cannot. Can you get a tattoo lightened in one session? Absolutely. But you cannot get a tattoo removed in one session. Unless it's a stick and poke that was done with like indie ink and it's very close to the surface of the skin and it was very light to begin with. We have gotten tattoos off in one session, but that is by far the rarity. And any tattoo removal person that tells you your tattoo is going to come off in one session is not being honest with you. The reason we wait 6 to 8 weeks between sessions, which is just about the minimum you want to wait, is because that's how long it takes those little tiny pieces that we just broke up to move all the way through your system. It takes about 6 weeks, as I mentioned earlier. And so we wait 6 to 8 weeks between sessions. Your skin heals very quickly. So if you think about it, skin heals from a tattoo in what, like 2 weeks, really? I mean, it takes about 4 weeks to fully heal everything. But you know, it's not open or painful after 2 weeks, it's just still healing. When we do this, when we do tattoo removal, really between 2 to 10 days. And it could be as short as a couple hours depending on what we're doing and depending on how high the laser is. We can have somebody, you know, really the next day be absolutely fine. But in general, we say about 2 to 10 days. Now, if you go to a tattoo removal studio and they say to you, we want you to wait 4 weeks between sessions. We want you to wait 3 weeks between sessions. They are trying to take your money. Don't let them do that. It is a minimum of 6 weeks to get the ink out. The longer you wait between sessions, the more ink comes out. There's no timeline. So if you said, well, I'm going to be away for 2 months and you know I don't want to come in, so I'm going to come in every 3 months, awesome. That's fine. It's going to make the whole process longer, but it's actually going to make you have less sessions because you're going to get out more ink in between each session. But you have to wait an average of 6 weeks. Average removal for us, about 9 to 18 months. Do some go shorter? Absolutely. Do some go longer? Sure. We just had somebody come in who's taking off an entire, or wants to take off an entire back piece and an entire sleeve. That's going to be longer than 18 months because we can only get out about 40 square inches at one time. So that person we're going to see for the next 2 or 3 years. But in general, 9 to 18 months is a good gauge for a tattoo. Question everybody always asks, does it hurt? If you've been watched anything about tattoo removal on YouTube or on the internet, it looks like it is the most god-awful thing you could ever have done to you, akin to torture. If that's your impression of tattoo removal, that is not correct. Don't believe everything you see on the internet. Most people say it's less painful than getting the tattoo. I say it's just different. As opposed to the feeling of a tattoo, almost like a vibration, kind of grindy, kind of cutting kind of thing. Getting it off is a little more sharp. So we say like the splatter of bacon, for example. Some people say that. The snap of a rubber band. I think for those who have ever done this, taken a 9-volt battery and put it on your tongue. How many people here have done that? It's going to be all the guys. You see, all the guys have done that. And the women are like, you guys are idiots. And we are idiots. But most guys have taken a 9-volt battery and put it on their tongue. It's a little zzz, right? So I think that's what tattoo removal feels like. We can mitigate that pain in 2 ways. We can make it less in 2 ways. One, it's a very fast process. So for a tattoo that's maybe this big, you're talking about 30 seconds, 45 seconds to do the lasering on that. You know, bigger tattoos, different colors, it takes a little longer, but very, very, very fast. Most people who, they get done with their first session, they're like, they always say the same 2 words, that's it. That's all. So very fast. We also, that machine you see in the picture there, that's called a Zimmer cooler. And a Zimmer cooler is a machine that puts out air at 20 degrees Fahrenheit, ultra cold. In fact, the first time I worked on my tattoo, I actually gave myself frostbite because I was so nervous doing it myself. Bad idea, for the record. But it cools down the skin and numbs it up. And that makes a huge difference in the pain factor. Most of the ones you see on the internet, they're not using anything to cool the skin. They're not using anything to numb the skin. They're just basically cranking it out on people, and that is not the way to do it. Some people talk about studios that will do lidocaine. So they'll inject lidocaine into your skin. Does it work? Yeah, I mean, it numbs it up a little bit, but A, the lidocaine injection itself is pretty painful. And B, you're putting a layer of fluid between us and the tattoo. And whenever you shoot a laser through fluid, it's going to decrease the efficacy of the laser. So lidocaine, yes, it may hurt a little bit less, but it's not worth it because you're not going to get as good of a treatment. Numbing creams, so those can work, but they have other issues. Anything you're going to get over the counter is not going to really make that big of a difference, so don't waste your money. So And also lidocaine creams can have other sort of side effects medically that you want to be careful about. This was a quote, actually before I change the slide, this was a quote from one of our clients when we asked him how he felt about the whole thing. He said, "It's less painful than having a tattoo on my body that I didn't want, so forever." So, psychologically you want this tattoo off, that's more painful than having a tattoo. Contraindications, who's not a good candidate for tattoo removal? First, if you're taking phototoxic or photosensitive drugs, big words, what does it mean? In general, these are drugs that will make your skin more light sensitive. So antibiotics, certain cancer drugs. There's a whole wide range of them. If you are taking medication, really important that when you go to a tattoo studio, if they have not asked you what medications you're taking, please do tell them, because it can make a difference. I had a client come in the other day. We do a medical update form every time. She wrote that she was taking antibiotics. She did not know what it was. I told her I would not treat her. Ends up she is taking an antibiotic that is phototoxic, meaning that if we were to laser her, there's a chance that could cause toxicity in her skin. Not good. So you want to be real careful about certain medications. The biggest one by far is antibiotics. If you're on an antibiotic, some of them are okay, many of them are not. So please do be careful about that. If you have an autoimmune disorder, this could be Crohn's, this could be arthritis, this could be alopecia, this could be vitiligo, any sort of autoimmune disorder. That means you have a compromised immune system. If you have a compromised immune system and we're relying on your immune system to get rid of the tattoo, there could be an issue there. Some matter more than others. It's sort of like medication. Talk to your tattoo removal specialist if they know, and they should know, what's okay and what's not. In some cases, we will tell people that come in with an autoimmune disorder, you should go talk to your doctor before you get laser tattoo removal. And in most cases, just for the record, it's fine, but we just always like to be careful. Some people have an allergy to ink. Red ink is the one that, if you're going to have an allergy to ink, it's going to be on red, just like red food dye. If you have an allergy to the red, we can't get it out for you. So we had a guy come in, he said he's from Egypt, he ordered a tattoo machine online, tattooed himself. He had this sort of cartoonish thing on his leg that like a year later was still swollen and weepy. He said, every time I get into the shower, it sort of weeps. He's allergic to the red. That's the red trying to come through his skin. It's rare, but it happens. And if you're allergic to it, we don't want to break it up and put it through your system, because that could be bad. So if you've had an allergic reaction, again, tell the tattoo removal person that might not be a good idea. Keloid scarring. So again, not everybody who keloid scars will keloid scar with tattoo removal. In general, keloid scarring does not happen with this process. No scarring does. But keloid scarring, if you don't know, is a raised, kind of bubbly kind of scar. People who easily keloid scar tends to happen, when we looked at that chart, on African American skin. Tends to be much more likely on African American skin. If you keloid scar, you may or may not be able to get tattoo removal, because we don't want to make anything worse than it already is. All right, what are the risks? I mentioned this a little bit before. Scarring, very rare. It happens in about 5% of the cases, and 99% of those are people who get a scab or a blister and they pick it. For all you pickers out there, don't pick stuff. It's not good. That's what causes scarring, not only because you're picking your skin and you're taking away from that healing process, but we all have really gross stuff under our fingernails. And once you start picking stuff, you get an infection. That's where people get scars. But the laser itself, the process itself, does not really scar people. What are the biggest risks realistically for tattoo removal? There are two of them. There are hypopigmentation and hyperpigmentation. If we bring those pictures up a little bigger, just so people can see those. The guy on the left, you can see he had a green shamrock. You can see that little bit of a white around that shamrock. That's hypopigmentation. Hypo means less pigmentation, color, less color. Can this happen on any tattoo? Sure. Does it usually happen? No. It's pretty rare. The lighter your skin, the less likely it is to happen. The darker your skin, it can happen. If you're good at tattoo removal, it doesn't happen very often, and it doesn't happen very often to our clients. But sometimes somebody's skin will react like that, and it is what it is. We can't control how the laser reacts with someone's skin. We can control to a certain extent, but ultimately their skin is what's going to happen. The one on the other side is a tattoo, and you can see some brown there. That's called hyperpigmentation. Hyper means more pigmentation color. Is it possible that when we laser off a tattoo, it could make things a little bit brown? It can. Happens very commonly on Asian skin and African American skin. Hispanic skin, sometimes in the middle. It may or may not. What happens with hyperpigmentation, the good thing is that if you use a lightening cream, in most cases you can get that hyperpigmentation off. So lightening creams are what we recommend to people. Her tattoo actually was way more hyperpigmented in her last session. It's actually gotten less. And ultimately she will probably have no hyperpigmentation. Her tattoo is going to go off beautifully. Talk for a second about colors. There's this myth out there. People always say, blues and greens, much harder to get out. Not really. They take a little bit longer, yes, but they're not much harder to get out. As I said earlier, this ND-YAG laser, this 1064, it gets out black, and it does it very gently. We can use it on all 6 skin types. We can use it from someone very pale to someone very dark skinned, very gentle. We'll take out black, and sometimes we'll take out blues and greens. In order to take out reds, oranges, and yellows, we have that. You can see 532 is half of 1064. It takes out reds, oranges, and yellows. It actually is a green-colored laser that takes, you need the opposite, so the reds, oranges, and yellows absorb green. And it will take out reds, oranges, and yellows. The way we get out blues and greens, you can use either a ruby or an alexandrite. They get out blues and greens. But if you're looking at this sort of complicated chart on the bottom, you can see where 1064 would fall somewhere in that infrared range, which is on the right-hand side of this chart, the gentle side. And 532 and 649, will fall somewhere in the visible light, which is on the left-hand side of the chart. And the further left you go on this chart, the more harsh things become. So the most harsh laser we use is that 532. Good news, we use very little of it. So reds, oranges, and yellows, those come out very easily, actually. Just to give you an idea, when we set the laser for reds, oranges, and yellows, we usually set it to somewhere around 1. When we're using the ND-YAG laser, it can go up to 23. So big difference when we're getting out. So reds, oranges, and yellows tend to be pretty easy to get out. Blues and greens, they are a little bit more challenging because of the time it takes, because that ruby laser or that alexandrite laser, it's a little more harsh on the skin. They tend to blister a little bit more, they tend to be a little bit harsher. As we bring the laser up, we don't want to cause someone to have a bad heal, so we generally take it a little bit lighter. So do blues and greens take a little bit longer? In many cases, yes, blues and greens take a little bit longer. Are they harder to get out? No. They just sometimes can be a little bit longer of a process. What are the hardest colors to remove? Purple and white. Purple, because purple is made up of red and blue. We have a laser that takes out red. We have a laser that takes out blue. We do not have a laser that takes out purple. So what do we do in that case? We do one and then the other. So for example, we've worked on a lot of purple tattoos, where we work on them for a while as if they're kind of more bluish, which is the way it usually comes out, and they get redder and redder and redder. So we're getting out the blue, then we need to get out the red, or vice versa. We can figure it out much of the time with purple. Purples can be tough. There are some purples that are very hard to get out. Whites are a totally different category. When we first started doing laser removal, the laser company said to us, don't worry about white, the laser is going to reflect right off of it, right? So if you think about wearing a white t-shirt on a hot day, the sun reflects off of it, you don't get as hot. Except for the fact that white inks have other stuff in them. For example, titanium oxide, we go back to some of those oxides. What happens when you laser white? It can turn blue, it can turn red, it can turn black, it can turn all sorts of colors. I just did a tattoo the other day, the white did not react at all. So again, we don't know what's in these whites. Whites can go any way. I had a guy come in who had some scalp work done, so he had some cosmetic tattooing on his scalp, and he said it was just too dark in the front, and I looked at it and it looked kind of grayish, and I said, did the tattoo artist use white? And he said, I have to go back to her. So we went back to her, and in fact, she did use white. And if I had lasered the front of it just was the 1-inch front of his scalp, it could have gone really badly, so we didn't. And that's, talks about knowing inks. Knowing inks is important, and purple and white, they can be challenging for us. Not that they don't come out, they could just be challenging. So what's the difference between doing a lightening and doing a removal? So let's talk about a removal for a second. When you get a tattoo, if you get a tattoo and the day after, of course you'd never get anything from off the mat that you would hate, but if you got a tattoo and the day after you were like, oh gosh, what did I do? You need to wait 4 weeks after the application of the tattoo in order to get laser tattoo removal. It needs to heal up. We can't do it in the first week or 2 because we'll cause more damage to the skin. So you gotta wait. About 80 to 90% of tattoos come off 100%. What are the ones that don't? Funky inks sometimes weird colors like purple and white. A full removal takes an average of 6 to 12 sessions. How many does it take? If we look at a tattoo, can we tell you exactly how many it's going to take? No. Does that mean we're not good at what we do? No, we're very good at what we do. If you ever go into a tattoo removal studio and the person says, it's going to take 11, they're full of it. There's no possible way to know how long it's going to take. Why? Because everyone's tattoo is different and everyone's body is different. What are some of the things we don't know about a tattoo? We don't know what kind of ink. We don't know what's in the ink. We don't know how deep the ink is. We don't know how much ink there is. We don't know how your skin's going to react. We don't know how your immune system's going to react. So we can estimate. We can say, well, this is a pretty light tattoo. It's on your chest, you know, maybe 6 to 8. But we can't tell you for certain, again, not because we're not good at what we do, but because there's no possible way you can know. My wife went into a place not too long ago doing a little secret shopper, and she said to the woman there, so how long will it take to get off my tattoo? And the woman looks at her and she goes, 11. And my wife said, well, how does that work? You know, what happens to the ink? And the woman said, it just comes right through your skin. We just laser it, comes right. So here was somebody that not only was giving her bad information in terms of the number of sessions, but really didn't even know how tattoo removal works. So be careful out there. There's a lot of people that aren't as knowledgeable about this as they should be. So in terms of lightening, how many sessions does it take to lighten a tattoo? On average, about 1 to 4. I don't determine that. The client doesn't determine that. Who determines whether it's light enough? The artist. We have the utmost of respect for our artists that we work with. We would never say to them, it's light enough. We don't know. It depends on the tattoo. It depends on what you're putting over it. It depends on the artist. Some artists like a really, really clean canvas. I did some work on one of my artist friends, the guy who did all my Japanese traditional. He did like 8 sessions because he wanted it as light as possible. His teacher was doing his tattoo, and he wanted it super duper light. Does it always have to be super duper light? No. But the lighter you get it, the cleaner the canvas. Oh, what? Say again? So the picture here is 3 sessions. So you can see we can do a lot in 3 sessions. In general, the biggest thing the artists want us to get out are blacks and really dark colors. So if you have a dark blue, dark green, black, nothing will cover a dark color no matter what you put over it, except black. So I had an artist tell me once, he said when people come in with really dark tattoos they want to cover up, he says you can either have a panther, a bomb, or a magic 8 ball. That's all I'm going to do for you. So the cleaner the canvas, the better the cover up. All right. So let's look at some results. So you can see on the right side, that was just a tattoo he got early. He's a tattoo artist, actually got that early in his career, hated it. You see the artist actually did some nice stuff with the orange, but we got that pretty much out. That was you can see the purple in the hair. That was a tough tattoo to lighten up. That took quite a few sessions. The one on the other side starts black. It's actually a little dark on this slide, but it went from sort of that symbol, whatever that is, and then ended up getting a pretty dark cover-up. But you can see the artist was able to use some negative space in the tattoo because we'd taken off so much of the black. These are some of the results we've had in our studio. You can see on the left-hand side, or on the right-hand side, sorry.
No,
Left, sorry, yes. People looking at it on the screen, it's your left-hand side. Now I got it. Tattoo removal. Okay, yeah, left. Okay, so you can see it's on her shoulder. She actually also had 2 tattoos. She had a tattoo down her rib cage and on her thigh that are also off. She spent about 45 minutes with us when we were doing it. She was a trooper. You can see on the other side, the right-hand side, there's a good example of getting out color. That was actually a cover-up. The mound the leprechaun was standing on used to be initials, but we were able to get that tattoo off pretty much completely. And so you can see colors come off. It's not that they're harder, it just took a while. So here you can see some other amazing results. Stephanie, we do a lot of names. People always ask us, what's the #1 thing you do? And I'd love to say names because that would just make for a good story, but really it's not just names. It's mostly about placement. So people have tattoos that they may like, it's just where they put them. In many cases, lower down on their arms, on their necks, places where they're very visible. But we do a lot of X's, and it's important that people get it off. I just worked on a client who is getting married in July, and his fiance would not marry him until he got his ex's name off his bicep. So. Some more results here. You can see on the left-hand side, fingers. Fingers, though they take a little bit longer, it depends. Sometimes a finger, I mean, we all know finger tattoos don't tend to stay in very well. It's hard to get them to stay in, so sometimes, like this wasn't a very well done tattoo that came out very quickly. On the other side, You can see that she got it off her hip. She's Hispanic, so again, we moderate what we do based on someone's skin tone. So she's a little bit darker skin tone. You can see no hypopigmentation on her tattoo. This is another great example of colors. So it was a green and yellow bee. We were able to take it off completely off his neck. Interesting, he always said that the cold on his neck actually was more uncomfortable than the lasering. He was fine with just doing it without the lasering. So some people don't love the cold. Now, why do neck tattoos generally come off pretty well? Lots of blood flow, right? Lots of big arteries and veins going through your neck. Just a few others. There's a red rose we took off and a panther of some sort. Again, you can get some really good results. So if you're going to get a tattoo removed and you don't live close enough to come to Disappearing Ink, although we suggest people fly into Boston if you have to do so. But if you don't live close to Disappearing Ink and you want to get your tattoo removal done, what do you look for in a tattoo removal studio? What makes a good tattoo removal studio? First, knowledge about the skin. So you look at med spas and dermatologists, they have good knowledge about the skin. Like estheticians, they know tons about skin, or at least they should. You got to have a knowledge. You got to understand how skin works. Now, skin is your largest organ of your body. It's not that complex. If you're talking about diseases of the skin, that's very complex. If you're talking about surgery, those are very complex things. But skin itself is a pretty basic structure, and anybody who does tattoo removal should know about that. The person should have some sort of technical expertise on the laser, or at least on how the process works. Again, when my wife went to that woman and she said, oh, it just comes up right through your skin, that is not correct. That is not how the process works. That is not how the laser works. And sometimes, if I would suggest, make sure the person knows what their laser does, is how the laser works. I know for us, when the guy comes to fix our lasers, we always sit there with him, watch him fix the lasers. Why? We want to know not just that I press down the pedal and the laser works, but how does it work? Why does it work? That's important to know the technology behind what you're doing. Most important thing, and this is the thing that most tattoo removal experts do not have, and this is a knowledge about the tattoo process and tattoo ink. Recently, the laser company that we work with asked me to be a trainer for them, and so when you buy a laser, they send out a trainer for a day to tell you how the laser works. And they said the reason we want you to be a trainer is because you know more about tattooing than most of this. He said everybody in the industry. I don't think that's true, but we have a great knowledge about how tattooing works, and you can tell we've looked into this stuff. We understand inks, we understand needles, we understand tattooing. Not just because I've sat in a chair for 35 hours, but because we make it our job to do so. And in order to get something off, it's always better to know how to get it on and how it goes on. If you don't know that, that's a tough one. So for example, when we look for people to work with us, we say visible tattoos not only accepted, but really suggested, because we want the person to have a tattoo. We want people to understand what it's like to get a tattoo, and we want them to understand the tattooing process. Most med spas, most dermatologists, I'm not trying to slam you guys, please send the mail somewhere else, but not trying to slam them, but they don't like tattoos. They don't understand the process. They're not into it. They don't really feel like they're a part of it, and therefore they're not going to be able to understand it as well as we do. I had a tattoo artist recently say to me, he said, you know why we like you, Rob? He said, because you're one of us. We don't feel like we are separate from the tattoo industry. We feel like we are part of the tattoo industry, and we work hand in hand with the artists, with the studios, to really make a difference. All right, so I want to bring a couple people up, some clients of ours, for a testimonial. So come on up. This is Irene.
Hello.
This is Soraya.
Hello.
Okay, so I think a microphone here. Is this microphone good? All right, so real quick, tell us about your experience. Just in what has your experience of tattoo removal been like?
I had a tattoo on my lower back, which I was very unhappy with. I've had 2 sessions. I'm very pleased with it. The process itself, like you said, the cold sometimes is more intense than the actual tattoo process, the removal. It feels like a snapping of a rubber band, I agree. And it was like a sunburn for 2 days after. On the second one, the first one, I didn't really feel much of anything. I'm very happy with it. I'm looking forward to getting a cover-up done by Off the Map in the very near future.
Do you want to show them the tattoo? Can we show them the tattoo?
You can show them. I can't reach my
Yeah, can you zoom in on that? Okay, so you can see the tattoo versus what it used to look like. Oh, maybe you can in a second. You see how faded it is? So it's really coming off beautifully, and we're close to, I think, a cover-up on that one. All right, great, thank you.
Hello. Yeah, the overall removal process is not bad at all. A lot less painful than I thought it would be. Snapping of the rubber band, the bacon grease, that's very good. And afterwards, it doesn't feel any worse than when you've just gotten a fresh tattoo. As a matter of fact, I'd say it hurts less during the healing time afterwards. Most of the initial pain is then and there, but they do a great job at numbing it up, and it's a lot less painful than I thought it would be. So I'm only getting a few treatments. I plan on covering up what I have. It's not that I regret the tattoo. I'll get them somewhere else. It's just I regret putting them where I put them. So I will get them covered up. I will get a whole chest piece. So
Anyone just show the tattoos as they are now. So how many sessions have you had, Saray?
3.
3 sessions. You can see the difference between how dark they were when she first started, or maybe you can. We'll get there. There we go. All right, so you can see how light they are now. They're really coming off beautifully. Thank you guys so much for coming up. All right. So now we're going to take some questions. We'll take questions from anybody in here. I'm also going to hop on the chat here. So if you've got a question that you've been holding on to, all right, send it to us and I'll check it out. So are there any questions here? Anybody? Really, I'm not that good. I couldn't have told you everything. Are there any questions?
You all educated us very well before we started.
Indeed.
So.
What happens if you're a smoker? So what are the things you can do to get your tattoo off faster once we do the procedure? So what's interesting about disappearing ink is we do not sell any goops, we do not sell any creams, we do not sell any supplements. People are talking about liver cleanses, and all these are wonderful things. There has not been anything scientifically proven to help you remove your tattoo faster except for 2 things. One is water. And we don't sell water because it's just water. There's no magic water. Why does water help? Water helps the ink flow through your lymph system and your liver. The more hydrated you are, the better that system works. In addition, if you've ever seen the supermodels that don't rep cosmetic companies and they ask them how their skin is so beautiful, they all say exactly the same thing. I drink a ton of water. Water is very good for your skin. The more hydrated your skin is, not only the better this process goes because you don't end up having as much dry skin, but again, it's helping the whole process through and helps your skin stay healthy. The other thing you can do is to not smoke. Smokers take 2 to 4 sessions longer to get their tattoos off. Why is that? It's a couple reasons, actually. And this is if you're smoking tobacco or other stuff. It doesn't matter. The more you smoke, the longer your process is going to take. Why? 2 reasons. 1, when you smoke and you carbonize this stuff into your lungs, the same part of your immune system that is trying to get your tattoo out is trying to remove all that crap from your lungs. Okay, so the more stuff that's in your lungs, the more your immune system is working, the less time your body has to work on that tattoo. And if your body has the choice of tattoo removal or breathing, it's going to choose breathing. The other reason is that smokers, not only does it affect your cardiovascular system, it affects your peripheral nervous system. So all the arteries and veins that go to your hands and your feet and to your extremities are also affected. So a tattoo of a smoker that's on a wrist, that's a long process. So 2 things you can do to make a tattoo come off faster: drink lots of water, stay hydrated, and don't smoke. Oh, and vaping is a good question. Vaping is better than smoking, so we think there's a lot of controversy about that now. Most people will say at the moment vaping is better than smoking, so that will help the process, but that's if you want to make that decision between vaping and smoking, do the research, go on Google and see what happens. All right, do we have any questions? We don't have any questions here. Any other question? Yeah.
From the crystals, you said it goes from like 1 to 23, depending on what color you have, the intensity of.
So the way that works is the laser energy, that's what we're talking about. It's something called fluence. I didn't want to get too technical, but it's fluence. It's the amount of energy the beam is actually putting out. In general, it's not necessarily about color, it's about wavelength. It's about what colors we're getting off. The more harsh lasers we tend not to make as high, whereas
They all feel the same across the scale?
getting out reds, oranges, and yellows tends to be by far the least uncomfortable. Getting off blues and greens, interestingly enough, is about the same as getting off black. It's just much slower. So in most lasers, the ruby crystal or alexandrite crystal that gets off blues and greens is a little bit slower. So most people think that actually is less uncomfortable. But it's all in the same ballpark. Interestingly enough, one thing I didn't mention when we're talking about blues and greens, and thank you for bringing up colors, there are some lasers that have what's called a pulse dye handpiece, meaning they take a special handpiece, they shoot the laser through it, that's what helps them take out the blues and greens. Problem with that technology, and you should ask your laser person this question: if I have a lot of blues and greens, how do you get it off? If they say we use this laser and it has a special handpiece, problem is when you shoot a laser through that handpiece, it shoots it through a liquid. That's what changes the wavelength to make it get off blues and greens. Problem is when you shoot a laser through liquid, it kills the power of the laser. So a lot of those lasers that use this special handpiece cannot do a great job on blues and greens. They can fade them, they can't get them out. In terms of pain, interestingly enough, the higher we make the laser, the higher the energy we use, again, the higher the fluence, it means that you have less and less ink. So I had 3 people yesterday, it was a good day, with 3 people graduate yesterday with their tattoos 100% off. All of them said the same thing. We had the laser up at around 20 for all of them. They all said it was the least painful one they did. Why? Less ink. Less ink, less exploding ink in your skin, less heat being created. It hurts a little less. So, any other questions? All right, let's see. Any questions here? Oh, how much does tattoo removal cost? Thank you from, thank you. How much does it cost? Well, if you go to a dermatologist or a med spa, it's uber expensive. It's really super expensive. In fact, most dermatologists will charge about 4 times as much as we do. Why do we do that? Why can we? Because it's all we do. So a dermatologist has a tattoo removal laser sitting there, and they use it every once in a while. To pay for that laser, they need to charge a lot. Plus, they're dermatologists, so they're doctors. Their time is very valuable. Not that our time is not valuable, but valuable in a different way. So how much does it cost? For us at Disappearing Ink, we start tattoos at $90. That's 1 to 2 square inches, so you're looking at a tattoo about that big. And it goes up from there. So 3 to 5 square inches is $125. 6 to 9 square inches is $200, and it goes up to there. We max out at $450 per session. $450 tattoo is 15 square inches to 40 square inches, and that actually brings up a good point. How much can we do in one session? Can we do someone's whole arm, the whole sleeve, or whole back in one session? Unfortunately, we can't. It's not that we don't want to. It's just that we can do about 40 square inches. So if you take a piece of paper and fold it in half, that is about as much as we can do in one session, because that's about all your body can take in terms of getting the ink out. If you do much more than that, it's going to take significantly longer to get the ink out. So the way we take big tattoos off is we do them in pieces, right? So if somebody has a sleeve, we may do the front and the back in one session, this piece in another session. And by doing that, we wait 6 weeks in between each session. So between doing this piece, we'll do it, and then we won't do it for 12 more weeks. And it's going to give it a lot of time for that ink to come out. It's also going to give your body enough time to process the ink. If you're trying to get an entire sleeve off in one session, it's just too much ink for your body to handle. Any other questions? Let me see if we got any here. No questions there. So I think if we don't have anything else, what we're going to do now is we're going to do... Oh, wait, let me get back to my... Where are we here? Now I can't find it. There it is. We're going to do the bad tattoo contest. So for people who showed up today here to watch this live, we're going to do a bad tattoo contest. So if everybody who's entered into the bad tattoo contest could please stand up. All right. Anybody else? All right. All right, we're going to invite Gabe to come on up. Oh, Max is going. Oh, hey, come on in, Max. Nice to see you. I saw you back there. All right, so I don't know if you guys know, this is Max. Max is one of the amazing artists here at Off the Map. So I'm going to invite my wife Eve to come over as well. And we're going to take a look at these tattoos. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to announce the winner. So We're just going to go from left to right, so come on over. All right, so let's see. So.
And do you want the whole removed?
All right, so can you show the camera? So show that to the camera.
Like intestines.
Tell them what you told us earlier. What do you think it looks like?
Intestines.
Okay. All right, great, thanks. All right, come on up. Wow. All right.
Okay.
Cover
And
up.
it's just the gas lamp. Is it cover up?
Cover up of a Buddhist dome.
Okay.
What was it before?
A Buddhist dome.
Oh, yeah.
You can see it? I can't see it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
good,
Yeah. All right, so show it to the camera. All right, thank you very much. And by the way, whoever wins this contest is going to get a free session of tattoo removal at Disappearing Ink. So come on up.
Mine is very small, but it's in my pinky, and I've had like 3 sessions on it.
Wow, okay.
What color was it?
Black,
Okay.
and it like bled underneath
Okay.
when it first got tattooed.
Okay. All right. If you want to, I don't know how we're going to show that one. And come on over there. And
Anyone else?
we got one more. Hang on a sec.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, and one more.
So we really want you to show them your great art.
That's supposed to be my last name.
Oh,
Where is it?
his last name.
Yeah. Like that? That was my
Like that,
first,
yeah.
tattoo. So, yeah.
Oh, look at that. All right.
Creative, right?
All right. Can you show it to the camera? All right. Anybody else? All right. So I think we're gonna take a look. Oh, no. I think we're good. I think we're good. All right. So I think we're going to take a break now. Thank you to everybody who has been watching from afar. Thank you to everybody who has been watching here. We appreciate it. Check us out at disappearingink.com. If you have any other questions, there's tons of good information on the website. Give us a call. Come on and visit, and then come back and get your great tattoos at Off the Map. Thank you very much.